The scandal is even bigger than you knew. Listen to this. Dave Camp, chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, revealed yesterday that the committee's investigation found that it wasn't only conservative groups applying for a 501c4 status, that special IRS status, a tax-exempt status that all these liberal groups get, but the IRS targeted and harassed existing 501c4 groups. In fact, it's even worse than that. This is what Dave Camp, the chairman of the committee, said, quote, at Washington, D.C.'s direction, that means headquarters, IRS in Washington, dozens of groups operating as 501c4s were flagged for IRS surveillance, including monitoring of the group's activities, their websites, and any other publicly available information. Of these groups, 83% were right-leaning, and of the groups the IRS selected for audit, 100% of the groups selected by the Obama IRS were right-leaning. 100%. Somehow every single 501c4 that the IRS selected to endure the time, expense, distraction, and stress of an IRS audit just happened to be conservative. The fact that existing 501c4s were targeted along with applicants is important. First, though it isn't conclusive, it does provide further evidence, if any was needed, that the scrutiny endured by conservative 501c4 applicants had less to do with confusion over the rules than with efforts at political suppression. Second, it suggests that the targeting was part of a deliberate, widespread agency policy rather than restricted to bad apples in just one narrow area. So, not only did they try to crush the Tea Party movement before Obama's re-election effort, but they went after existing organizations, and they audited only conservative organizations, 100% of these groups. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't just fall off the tune about yesterday, or if you prefer, the turnip truck yesterday. Did you? This is a massive scandal. This is Stalinist. I've been using that term over and over and over again. I know others use it. I have been using it over and over and over again because this is what an out-of-control, rogue administration looks like. But it gets worse. Much worse. So it's worse than the IRS auditing only, exclusively, 100% conservative 501c4 groups, tax-exempt groups. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, that is tyranny. The IRS should be abolished. Have the Republican leaders in either house proposed a bill for a flat tax or a fair tax, or even just a bill to get rid of the Internal Revenue Service and to have some other tax reform system? No, not one of them. And yet the IRS is now clearly the tool of the left. It's now clearly the tool of this president and the Democrat Party. There is no way a Republican could use the IRS like this. There's no way we would want a Republican to use the IRS like this. How much more evidence do we need? They're monitoring websites. They're monitoring other things. I can't tell anymore which agency is domestic and which one's international. Can you? The NSA is monitoring domestic phone calls and, phone numbers and phone patterns. The IRS is now monitoring websites. What the hell's going on here? And what's the end game here? What the hell for? This is supposed to be our government. They're supposed to represent us. They create these institutions to tell us how to live, where to live, when to live. What is this? Under penalty of perjury, tell us everything you know about yourself financially. What? Oh, yes. Federal income tax and the Internal Revenue Service. Running our health care system? The NSA collecting domestic phone numbers? NSA shouldn't be collecting any domestic phone numbers, period, unless they have some evidence that they need to pursue. That is not a domestic agency. It's just so disgusting. And so now we have, from our friends at Hot Air, Ed Morrissey. Here's the other shoe. And this shoe of corruption and cronyism and tyranny, it's a centipede. So it's got a lot of shoes, if you will. 2 years ago, Democrats bragged about raising $1 billion to reelect Barack Obama. They had super PACs like House Majority PAC and Priorities USA Action raise tens of millions of dollars to backstop both the presidential and congressional races in the last cycle. Now that Priorities Action USA has taken a seat on the sideline and Republicans and conservatives are raising tens of millions of dollars against them, Senate Democrats want the IRS to intervene to curb the very same channels and rules that they exploited so well in the 2012 election. Here's the news story. Senate Democrats facing tough elections this year want the Internal Revenue Service to play a more aggressive role in regulating outside groups expected to spend millions of dollars on their races. This is Chucky Schmucky Schumer's invisible hand. That jerk. In the wake of the IRS targeting scandal, the Democrats are publicly prodding the agency instead of lobbying them directly. They are also careful to say the IRS should treat conservative and liberal groups equally. Well, we know it won't. But they're concerned about an impending tidal wave of attack ads funded by GOP-allied organizations. Much of the funding for those groups is secret. Oh, it's secret. It can't be secret. Let's sick the NSA on them. Let's get the information. Secret. You know, we used to call this privacy. Isn't it interesting how the left uses language? And by the left, I would obviously include the big media. So now it's secret. No, it's private. No. If we disagree with it, it's secret. If we agree with it, it's private. Private's good. Secret's bad. So it's secret. Do you want to know why it's secret? A.k.a. private, ladies and gentlemen? So people making the donations aren't harassed or targeted by politicians, by unions, by bureaucrats, by the IRS. That's why it's secret. One of the most powerful groups is Americans for Prosperity, funded by the billionaire industrialist Charles and David Koch. It has already spent close to $30 million on ads attacking Democrats this election cycle. Good for them. I hope they spend $30 billion attacking them. It's called freedom. What, only Soros, only their billionaires should spend money? So they go out and they trash the Koch brothers. Because as you well know, we can't have another voice on our side doing what they did the last election cycle. I'm not done with this point. So the Democrat Party makes no bones about it. It's senators who are running scared in red states in particular. They are demanding that the Internal Revenue Service interfere with this election. They are demanding that the Internal Revenue Service shut down groups that are doing exactly what their groups did the last election cycle. The IRS audited 100% conservative groups that are 501c4 tax-exempt groups. 100% of the audits they conducted, conservative groups. They went after the Tea Party. They're still after the Tea Party. In the face of this scandal, so brazen and bold is the corruption, is the tyranny, that the Internal Revenue Service commissioner, the acting commissioner, coming right out of Obama's White House, the Office of Management and Budget, issues regulations that were in the works at the beginning of the scandal, which we didn't even know about, to put the clamp on Tea Party organizations. Meanwhile, the unions are running wild. Meanwhile, the leftist groups are running wild. Meanwhile, Eric Holder is suing states to ensure that their voting lists are corrupt. Meanwhile, they're trying to change the nature of citizenship in this country. Folks, what's going on is no joke. I don't care if it's snowing on the East Coast, if you're sweating on the West Coast, if you're picking your nose in North Dakota. I don't care. It's going on right under your eyes, right in your eyes, under your face. The IRS must be abolished because now we know it cannot be trusted like the politicians who created it.